Adventures of Sonic Episode 4. Slow going. Gee, I wonder if Sonic will be made slow in this episode. Way to completely spoil the plot right away. At least in Saturday M, when Sonic was made slow, it was by a wizard and not spoiled right away. Robotnik sends Scratch out of his airship and then complains about having to use a magnet to save them when it was his idea to send him out of the airship. Then one of the people in the town actually rings a bell asking Sonic to save them, talking really slowly. So I guess when Robotnik called these people slow-witted, he meant they're literally slow. But he wasn't slow when he got to the bell. He was already being surprisingly competent for a civilian by reacting and taking action when he saw Robotnik, which was why I expected him to be a hero at first, and not just beg Sonic to save him. That's all the civilians in this show are good for. There's a giant amount of filler with Scratch slapstick when we could have just immediately cut to Robotnik showing them the slow motion beam and telling them to shoot Sonic with it. And he says that he'll fire them both if they fail. I'm guessing there won't be any consequences to that. Why would a crazed world dictator make an empty threat? Somehow, when Robotnik is hit with the slow beam, he doesn't notice, even though he clearly reacted to being hit by it. I found the slow talking so extremely annoying that I literally increased the speed of the video. And he was still talking slow, but I had to make the show not the fastest speed ever because then I couldn't understand Sonic. It's bad enough there's no subtitles. Sonic seems to be the math guy and not Tails, doing measurements and stuff. He really does siphon up all of the competence. I really hate this sloth guy. I hate the way he talks and he's just filler. I get that he's a sloth, but real life sloths are much, much slower than that. Sonic starts building a fence for the sloth village. Why didn't they make it already? Well, I guess they're too slow to. The sloth hits a gong to warn them of a badnik attack, and then Sonic runs around the village and surrounds it with a stone wall? Wait, how? We never saw him have the materials for that. After Scratch wastes my time bickering, he hits Robotnik with the beam again, causing him to tell him to see him in an hour, rather than notice that he was hit by the beam. Scratch wants to capture Sonic with an inflatable schoolhouse. Sonic is suspicious right away, probably because the kids are all fake and he might be able to see that. Somehow he gets a disguise as a crossing guard, and he throws Scratch into the schoolhouse and spins it in a tornado to throw him. Then Grounder goes into a sloth disguise and gets hit by Scratch to make him call out for help. Scratch is competent enough to actually hit Sonic with the slow ray as Tails runs away, and he puts him in a cage. While this is good tension, I really despise this episode because everyone sounds annoying when they talk that slow. Especially since that tends to result in horrible acting. Like from the Sloth Kid. Tails says that he's going after Sonic. Wait, will he actually be allowed to be useful? He even tells the Sloth Kid to stay home. Instead of killing Sonic, like would be logical, Scratch and Grounder waste time taunting Sonic in the cage. This kind of behavior really destroys their credibility. When Tails tries to hit them with the slow ray, it's knocked away from him insultingly easily to pad out the episode. But fortunately he manages to fly away with it. I guess the reason he went all the way to the Sloth Village was because he was a coward? Then suddenly it turns out that now the slow ray is a fast ray. I think Tails said it had something to do with the crystal. I had to rewatch it to see that it turned into a fast ray because the crystal on it broke. That was just a one-sentence explanation, so it's very easy to miss. And if it was just explained that Tails could reprogram machines like he normally can, that would have been a lot simpler to understand than the ray gun broke, so now it works in reverse instead of not working at all for some reason, because Deus Ex Machina. This isn't going to make a satisfying victory, is it? The ray makes the sloths fast, so they can save the day acting like Sonic, which is pretty creative. And yet there's still no explanation for why Sonic is fast. He could have been hit with like a permanent fast ray. Tails has horrible acting saying that he has to zap Sonic back to normal, which he does, letting him escape being useful for the first time, and don't get used to that. This victory doesn't feel satisfying though. How did the ray gun become a fast gun? I know that the Sloth Kid fell on top of it, but why would that reprogram it, making the wires twist around in it or something? This kind of plot development would have worked a lot more naturally if Tails was an engineer like he's supposed to be, because then he'd have reprogrammed the ray gun with his smartness. I can't stress that enough. For some reason, Eggman doesn't think to fly away from Tails when he's aiming the slow gun at him, and instead he just cowers and tells him not to do it and expects him not to. So Tails hits him with the fast ray, which apparently affects the Eggmobile too, making it fly all over the place. Excuse me, how could Tails have possibly known that that would cause him to lose control of the Eggmobile, instead of being able to catch up with Sonic and destroy him, because his Eggmobile is super fast now? Out of complete nowhere, the Sonic Says scene about believing everyone has something to offer has Tails get trapped in quicksand, and he's told by the Sloth that if he moves slowly, he'll be okay. That is a good message, but where did that quicksand come from? That was so forced. It's not like this is a desert town. When this show has bad episodes, they're really bad, and you can hear the exhaustion in my voice. This is a story that would have been enjoyable if it was in a comic, but instead it was a TV show, so it was so nails on a chalkboard annoying hearing the characters talk so slow.
Okay!
Especially since it tended to come with horrible acting where the sloth sounds stoned. If this was in a comic, it would have been fine, because there is a great ending here where the sloths become fast and save Sonic, and Tails is the one who returns Sonic to normal, doing something useful for the first time in the show. And several episodes from now, he still won't be doing anything useful. But it's still Deus Ex Machina that when a part of the ray broke, it had this effect. You'd have to specifically program it to do this. Tails doing that would have made more sense, but instead he's portrayed as a realistic kid in this show, and it's to his detriment. I think in retrospect, the biggest disappointment of the episode was that they didn't do anything with the Sonic was slow concept, because he gets trapped in a cage that he's too slow to break out of immediately. He has spines, he has sharp spines. Couldn't he have cut out of the cage without his speed? They could have tied him up after knocking him out instead of slowing him down, and it would have had the same effect. The sloths didn't become useful from their slowness somehow, so while Sonic Says desperately tried to have us believe that they could offer something useful with their own innate abilities, the episode itself contradicts that, because Tails had to make them fast for them to do anything. When I first expected the Sloth Kid to be a competent hero and not a complete load, because he went off on his own from seeing Robotnik at the start. Fortunately, the next 2 episodes will be good, but there are a lot of bad episodes in this show.